Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we are about midway through the 2029 to 2030 offseason. It's about time today for the international free agent signing period to begin. Gotten a lot of good feedback from the worldwide scouting department that we will talk about very shortly. But just a quick recap of what we've done this offseason. Lost a couple of big players, notably our Silver Slugger winning designated hitter / backup catcher, Austin Wells, and our 4-time Gold Glove winning center fielder, Brenton Doyle. We are a team that's made the playoffs 4 straight years, and perhaps against the advice of some in the worldwide scouting department, we're trying to keep the core of this team together for at least one more year and remain competitive. We've made a couple of moves this offseason. Traded for Tyler Soderstrom, who's in the final year of his contract, hoping that he can replace a chunk of what Wells gave us offensively. On the pitching side, we also made another trade. We'll have Orion Kerkering for likely the final year before he hits free agency on our team as a potential right-handed setup man. And then perhaps most importantly, made a trade for Andrew Painter and signed him to a long-term extension. He's a guy who was actually released by the Phillies last year, picked up by the Mets, so not off to a brilliant start in his career, but still only 26 years old, and our hope is that perhaps he becomes a useful starter for us in the not-too-distant future. As we think about this team, mentioned at the end of the last episode that backup catcher is still a clear hole that we have, and there's an interesting option out there on the trade market or on the trade block at this point. And before we get into the IAFA period, we're going to make a trade here. William Contreras is really attractive, a slightly above average glove and durability, and a bat that was productive last year, above average hitter 2 of the past 3 seasons. But he's making $8.2 million, and the Astros are looking for a lot for him. But Rutschman, is also on the trade block. He is now with the Giants, coming off of a really nice season with a 113 WRC plus and a 3.3 WAR. Another guy who's a bit above average defensively. The bat certainly not as special as Orioles fans hope it will turn out being, but he's not set to make a ton of money next year, just under $4 million. The switch hitter will be a free agent after this upcoming season. We feel we're in good shape at catcher with Drew Romo, who's now won, I believe, 3 consecutive Gold Gloves for us. But we don't have a good defensive backup anymore with Austin Wells gone, although Soderstrom can play catcher for us. That's something we would only do in an emergency. And as we talked about over the last couple of episodes, Drew Romo also went to visit the Guru this offseason and is still rethinking his priorities and causing a bit of a conflict in the clubhouse. So the ability to potentially pick up a veteran Rutschman who's got the profile of a very marginal starting catcher at this point, but perhaps a very good backup catcher, is something that we are going to do. A lot of options to pick Rutschman up in a trade. As you can see, we're going to try to piece something together that's a little more palatable for us in terms of what we're giving up. And since we are very financially constrained, we're going to come up with something that also lets the Giants retain a decent chunk of Rutschman's contract as well. And it's another 1 year rental, but with the rentals of Soderstrom, Kirkering, and now Rutschman, definitely feeling like we're doing what we can to try to keep this team competitive. The Giants will keep just over half of Rutschman's contract next year. We have to send them the veteran JT Realmuto, who as we talked about last episode, was potentially going to end up as our backup catcher this year, even though he's going to be 39 years old and he spent all of last year in AAA Albuquerque with us. But he has not been productive offensively his last few years in the majors, and he's not quite as good defensively as Rutschman is at this point. So feel like that's a trade we certainly make. We also have to include Dylan Cruz. You may remember we picked him up in the Rule 5 draft, but there was no guarantee that he's going to make our 26-man roster, particularly with the subsequent acquisition of Mr. Soderstrom. So we were willing to include him. And then Eliezer Pena, 24-year-old, a decent-looking reliever prospect, split last year between high A ball, double A, and triple A, and had sub-3 ERAs at all three levels. Doesn't look like he's going to be a big-time reliever. He doesn't throw incredibly hard. Really good movement on his pitches, though, but just a two-pitch arsenal. Definitely not a guy that we aren't willing to give up to get this deal done. So ultimately, we give up a guy who potentially was going to be a fourth or fifth outfielder in Cruz, a guy who maybe would help us out of the pen over the next few years if we had some injuries in Pena, and then the guy who was likely to be our backup catcher for a guy who we think is an upgrade over Realmuto as our backup catcher in Mr. Rutschman. So we're going to go ahead and complete that trade, and now we're going to turn our attention to this very interesting international amateur free agent class. And the hope, obviously, is that Romo remains a very productive defensive and solid offensive player for us for years to come. But if he does pull some wacky shenanigans over the next few months before the season gets started after visiting with the guru, we at least feel that we've got a competent major league catcher in Rutschman on the roster, even though our preference is for him to probably only catch 30 or so games this year as Romo's backup. Kind of also an interesting situation with a couple of switch hitters likely to be our major league catchers this year. Caleb Lomavita, who we picked up in a trade a couple of years ago, still has one option year left. Competent defensively, really question his bat at the major league level after he hit 242 last year in AAA with a 78 WRC plus, and he was 0 for 2 in obviously a tiny sample size at the major league level. Potentially another year of seasoning for Loma Vida, or he'll be the first option if either Romo or Rutschman have any injury issues this upcoming year. And when we think about this IAFA class, going to be a very important one for us. We're back up to having $5.7 million to spend because our financial situation is not that great. So this could be the last opportunity to get, most likely, any one player that we want. Two very strong candidates according to the Worldwide Scouting Department. We'll talk about some of the slightly less popular candidates first. I mentioned that I did like the shortstop Chris Smiling Stan Mendez at the end of last episode. Potentially really interesting bat, some good personality traits. Don't love him defensively, but we have a dearth of prospects in the infield in our organization. And Charles Rosa thinks that going with Mendez may be a logical path for us to follow. I do like the fact that he's only looking for $2.4 million. He's got as high potential as anyone in this class. And given that demand, we might be able to layer him in with someone else. Right fielder Omar Gallo, recommended by Third Degree Top Gun and Raymond Effinger. Potentially very interesting bat and some outstanding personality traits with high leadership, adaptability, and work ethic. So I think that he could be a very interesting prospect for us to consider as well. Mr. Gallo, looking for $2.8 million. But by far the most popular prospect with the worldwide scouting department in this class, and the one who I think most people believe is the most talented player, whether it's a batter or a pitcher in this class, is the center fielder Jose Ibarra, recommended by Third Degree Top Gun, NS1 CLRK, Ben Phillip, Fluffy Dog 987, Alex the Tall, Nelson, DLL First Base 14, Undercover Boomer, Avery Shayam, and Mitch Fonstock. Ibarra, you can see his skill set looks like a potentially outstanding bat, high work ethic, and looks like a solid corner outfield glove, although he's listed as a center fielder right now. We've got very high scouting accuracy on him, ceiling as high as anybody in this draft according to our scout, and medium development risk. Ibarra looking for a bit more than the two other players we've talked about at $3 million a year, but it's hard for me to argue with him being the potentially most impactful bat available in this class. But it's not only about the batters, and there's a couple of interesting pitchers available. One who's not looking for much money at all is the starting pitching prospect Miguel Peralez, only looking for about $300,000. Has an almost perfect personality, high loyalty, adaptability, work ethic, and baseball IQ, low financial ambition. The only thing he's missing is high leadership. We think he can add about 5 miles an hour to his fastball, 4 or 5 miles from where he is today. Ultimately think he could have a 6-pitch arsenal, and the right-hander is certainly, if we decide to go for more than one or two players in this class, a very interesting prospect for us to consider. Looking at Mr. Peralez, part of the reason his demand may be so low is that our scout is much higher on him than the OSA. Tend to trust our scout a bit more, although certainly the fact that Peralez is not looking for a ton of money is not necessarily ideal in terms of what his actual ceiling may be. But if we trust our scout, he looks like a very interesting and potentially very cost-effective option for us to consider. But the highlight of the class is potentially the starting pitching prospect Orlando Beans Morales. High leadership, adaptability, and work ethic, so very positive traits for him as well. I think he can add 4 miles to his fastball and get it up into the high 90s. Ground ball or pitcher type with ground ball tendencies. If he fully develops, he's got a good capability of keeping the ball in the ballpark, and a potential 4-pitch arsenal, but he's got a lot of work to do on all of those pitches, particularly the changeup. I think his control could be outstanding with good movement on his pitches. The question is whether he'll reach the potential as far as his stuff. But Morales was definitely pretty much as popular as Ibarra was, with Not My 4-Ply, Third Degree Top Gun, Ben Phillip, Fluffy Dog 987, Alex the Tall, Durbin Dustin, Undercover Boomer, Charles Rosa, Raymond Effinger, and Mitch Fonstock, all recommending Morales. Also got some recommendations to pair up Morales with Peralez from Third Degree Top 1, NS1, CLRK, and Jarek Braxton. And that was a secondary recommendation from Nelson as well. So interesting options ahead of us. Morales, interestingly, is another guy that our scout is much higher on than the OSA. The OSA views him as a pretty average-looking prospect, while, as we talked about, our head scout thinks that he's got outstanding potential. So that makes me think perhaps we can make something work and turn this into a magical class if there's not going to be a ton of interest in Mr. Morales. So I'm going to try to hit the home run to get things started and go after the two players that I like the most. My hope is that we can come in a little low on Mr. Morales. If everyone just kind of views him as a average-looking 16-year-old prospect, which is what the OSA does, it's possible there might not be a big-time bidding war for Mr. Morales. So I'm going to actually try to offer him a little bit less than he's looking for right now and still hope that we can get him locked up. 1.3 million offer, and Beans Morales is willing to consider that. I don't know that our odds of getting our two favorite players and the worldwide scouting department's two favorite players are all that high. I do think that Ibarra ultimately probably goes for the max 5.7 million. Clearly we can get there if Morales doesn't accept that offer that we made to him and we decide that chasing Mr. Ibarra hard is the way to go. But we're going to come in with a very strong initial offer to him. I think he says he's looking for 3 million. We are going to offer him 3.9 million right at the start. The hope is that maybe we can get, in our view, the two top guys available, the outfielder Mr. Ibarra, as well as the starting pitching prospect Mr. Morales, both wrapped up early. And if we're able to get them wrapped up for the kind of money that we're looking for, we'd have 500,000 left, which might be able to land us Miguel Perales as well. I think it's a low probability that both of these guys are just going to come back in the next several days and say, we're done, we're joining you, but you never know unless you try. So we'll see if we can possibly pair up Ibarra and Morales together, and if not, then we'll have to pivot and hopefully try to ensure that we bring at least one of those two players on board when all is said and done. And initial feedback on both Morales and Ibarra, positive. Have also gotten feedback to the past episode that this would be a great year to be able to trade for some additional IAFA money. Agree with that suggestion from the investigations that I've done online. Just does not seem practical at this point for what I'd have to give up to bring even small amounts of cash on board. But I'm going to monitor the situation, and if we get into a point where we think if we add $500,000 could allow us to bring both of those guys on board, then perhaps it's something where I'm going to have to get a little more aggressive and, in my mind, a little more willing to let myself be ripped off to make that happen. And in the least surprising news of the day, Ibarra already back saying he's looking for more money. He wants $5.5 million. So, as expected, Mr. Ibarra is probably going to end up going for the full $5.7 million when all is said and done. I'm not going to say that there's no chance that we're going to bring him on board, but we've been looking for a big-time pitching prospect throughout the course of this series. Morales is not the greatest pitching prospect we've ever seen in the draft or the IAFA class, but when we combine good personality and a lefty with tendencies that we think would play pretty well in cores, He's a relatively clean prospect for an admittedly very raw 16-year-old player, and I still want to explore bringing him on board. If he comes back to us and says he's looking for a ton more money, doesn't mean that we won't pivot back to Ibarra. But at this point, Chris Mendez is not requesting a crazy amount of money. It says he'll perhaps sign for even less than the $2.4 million he was looking for. We'll actually offer him $2.25 million just to get a discussion going with him. So we've still got offers outstanding to a couple of players that we really like in Mendez and Morales. If they both reject us in relatively short order and come back wanting much more money and Ibarra is still available, conceivably we might pivot back to him. But as good as Ibarra is, and this won't surprise those of you who have followed me over the years, the opportunity to pick up a really high ceiling young pitching prospect with some great personality traits is something that I'm very intrigued by. And Jason Chorio, a free agent who we were very interested in bringing on board before we found a potential option in the Rule 5 draft that was much cheaper and much more willing to sign with us, has ended up going to the Yankees. Minor league contract that'll be worth $3.1 million if they promote him to the majors. Chris Mendez says that he likes our offer at this point, although supposedly there are multiple other teams interested in the young infielder. And Mendez has come back and said he's leaning towards an offer from the Orioles. Says he's looking for just over $3 million. So that is a number that we could hit. I'm going to put $3.1 million on Smiling Stan. Now he says he wants even more, but he's lying. He says he really likes our organization and would love to come play with us. He's willing to consider $3.25 million. The fact that we haven't heard anything more from Morales, and granted it's only been 4 days, makes me think we might have a chance at getting him locked up. We'll find out how things go. Still have 2 irons in the fire right now in the early going. And we've got a bunch of job offers for the World Baseball Classic, which will be upcoming shortly. Going to be held in Panama this year. United States is going to be in Group B with Mexico, Italy, Great Britain, and Brazil. They're offering us the job as the general manager of the United States. I've never played through the World Baseball Classic before. It's going to be something going on in conjunction with spring training for us. Since I've never done it before, and I'm guessing some of you who are watching haven't seen how it all works before either, guess I should probably accept the job to be the GM for the U.S. team, and maybe we'll load it up with a bunch of our Rockies. Going to have our first game in March 7th. And it looks like we don't have anyone on the roster yet. I'm assuming that at some point in the coming days. They're going to prompt me to review the pool of American players and build a roster for this tournament, which I'm expecting the United States will be one of the favorites in. Until they force me to do that, though, I think that I'm just going to focus on seeing what happens with our international amateur free agent offers that we've made regarding my day job with the Colorado Rockies. And unfortunately, Mr. Ibarra has signed away from us before we had an opportunity to potentially pivot back with him. So definitely feeling like we're going to need to get Morales signed to feel good about this offseason. Ended up getting every penny possible, $5.7 million from the A's organization. Mr. Ibarra, we will certainly add to our prospect shortlist and eagerly follow exactly what his career becomes. And unfortunately, the day after we potentially lose Ibarra, both Morales and Mendez says that they are looking for more money. So kind of a worst case scenario there. Would have been nice to know both of those pieces of information a day or two earlier when we could have potentially pivoted to Ibarra. I think at this point I'm going to do what it takes to ensure that we get Mr. Morales. Says he's looking for $2.2 million. We're going to offer him $2.5 million right now. Submit that offer to the pitching prospect. Guessing that will probably take us out of the running for Mr. Mendez, given where we were before on him. Says he's looking for $5.1 million, so definitely not feeling like bringing him on board is going to be particularly realistic, unfortunately. Omar Gallo says he's only looking for $1.88 million now. The bat was not quite as good as Ibarra's. The glove not quite as good as Ibarra's either. Very high development risk, but still a very interesting hitting prospect with some very positive personality traits. At the kind of numbers Gallo is looking for, we'll offer him a little bit less. We'd just like to kind of get the discussion going. I think the primary focus at this point is going to be to ensure that we get Morales on board, but I'd certainly love to pair him with another player that we really like. So we're going to offer $1.75 million to Gallo and find out what happens. And Gallo says he likes the offer. Mendez has signed with the Los Angeles Angels, so a couple of prime prospects going to the AL West. Mendez with $5.23 million, which presumably was the most that the Angels could offer. And Mr. Gallo, now back and looking for more money, says he's looking for $3 million, which we just can't afford. But I think I'm going to slow play things with him for the time being. I just don't want to put myself in a position where we potentially lose out on Morales. So I want to do whatever's necessary to get him locked up. Would love it if we do that shortly and then can potentially offer every other penny we have left to Mr. Gallo. But if that doesn't work, there's still some prospects that we've been investigating available. And we still have the potential for that Morales and Perales pairing as well. Perales says he's looking for $350,000 right now, so just a bit more than his initial requests were. And I thought some news on Drew Romo and his trip to the Guru might be the worst thing that could happen to us in this episode. But Ezekiel Tovar has said, "Hold my beer." You may remember that our all-world shortstop suffered an injury a few weeks before the end of the regular season last year. Been recovering from a torn labrum, but he's recovered a setback, going to undergo surgery, and now he is out for the entire season. That's definitely going to throw what to do with our team option of $23 million for him for next season into a lot more uncertainty. And it also leaves this team that we were trying to remain competitive with in a lot more uncertainty about whether we're going to be able to be competitive without the shortstop who has had an outstanding run ever since we started this series in Colorado. 1.5 WAR in the first season when we took the team over, but since then he's had a 5.5 plus WAR 4 consecutive seasons despite some injury issues and losing the outstanding defensive player who's also a very good hitter with very good speed for the entire season is a huge blow to our hopes for these Rockies. As you saw, Morales is also looking for more and more money. The Mets have made him a big offer, the number up to $3.72 million. We'll offer him $3.75. Says he wants more than that. I'm guessing we're going to end up spending a lot on him, but kind of thought that both Morales and Ibarra could end up being very fully priced players, and since we're not going to get Mr. Ibarra, I think my goal is to do what it takes to get Mr. Morales on board, and would love to be able to do that in a fashion that still might let us pair him with Mr. Perales. He's willing to think about a $4 million offer, so we'll get that out to Beans Morales. And with Mr. Tovar gone for the year, revisiting the free agent market and the trade block to get some potential infield help, Max Acosta, respectable defensive infielder with a little bit of speed, question his bat at the major league level, but he's a guy who's not looking for a major league contract right now. So we'll certainly offer him a minor league deal among the other players that are available. Andres Jimenez, with his defensive skills and personality, could be very interesting, but the bat is not great at this point at 31 years old. The $15 million that he's looking for, not really something that we can afford, given we're in such a big hole as far as fan interest. The extremely popular Nolan Arenado could be an interesting option to consider, but his bat at this point is not quite major league quality. He'd really be a guy to perhaps consider only if his price continues to fall at the age of 38. Unfortunately, nothing too compelling available right now in the trade market either. And Mr. Morales says that he likes our offer, but we have definitely heard that from him before. And we made it to the start of the preseason. No change to our budget. No new news as far as how Romo is feeling and how his teammates are feeling. So I'm going to assume at this point that no news is good news unless I hear otherwise. Does look like we've got just a few days left until WBC roster selection, which will be a big event for us here. And we did end up getting Max Acosta signed. Definitely a guy who could certainly be competing for a backup infielder spot with us. Most of his major league experience was a year ago with Miami. hit 231 with a 73 WRC plus in 442 at-bats, but was close to a win and a half above replacement level for the Marlins. And the price tag for Orlando Morales keeps going up. The Phillies have made the most recent offer to him that he likes. Says he's looking for $4.64 million. If we look at international amateur free agency, the most that the Phillies can do is $4.75 million. They've got all of that money left. Looks like the pool of position players that we've spent a lot of time with is getting pretty low, with just the first baseman Felipe Benavides available. He's looking for $3.2 million. That's actually just the only infielders. So hopefully there are still some other options out there. Yeah, Gallo is also out there. And then the catcher, Omar Landa, looking for $3.4 million. As far as the pitchers, our buddy's gone. Where'd he end up? Perales. $900,000 with the Mets. So he ended up going for materially more than expected, but with him gone, definitely going to mean that unless we get Mr. Orlando Morales locked up at this point, it's going to be an extremely disappointing IAFA period for us. So we are going to offer him $4.75 million, and he says he actually wants more than that, 4.96. We're going to offer him an even $5 million. Try to save a little more money to maybe add in a secondary player or not, but if Beans Morales comes back to us one more time looking for more, might just give him the full $5.7 million and ensure that we've done everything possible to try to get him locked up. And another potential target gone, Omar Gallo, signed for $3.3 million with the Minnesota Twins organization. And mercifully, Orlando Morales, the pitching prospect that we like the most, is signed with us. Did not end up being nearly the bargain that we thought he might be at $5 million. But we've got him signed, and we've still got another $700,000 to potentially spend on some other options. And we made a $700,000 option to the outfielder Jose Ochoa. Said he was looking for $850,000, but $700,000 is all we have to spend. Looks like a decent outfield prospect, some positive personality traits. The question is whether he's really going to have a major league bat. But he's a 16-year-old switch hitter, looks decent defensively, and at least has a high work ethic. So maybe a chance that we get a little lucky with his development. But certainly no guarantees that we're even going to get him signed with the money that we have left. It's also a roster selection deadline day for the World Baseball Classic. So expecting that we're going to see some Rockies and some Yankees on this roster. And as the general manager of the United States for this World Baseball Classic, an embarrassment of riches of very high-end players, the obvious guys, we're not going to do a lot of deep thought thinking about this. The top prospects, or not even prospects, the most highly rated American players, according to our scout, are all going to be on this roster. You can see we're very strong in the outfield, very strong in the infield. We're also going to have our first catcher in Dalton Rushing, and when we add Walker Jenkins, that takes the first 9 spots of this team are the highest rated players around according to our scout. We are going to add a Yankee in the veteran Aaron Judge, and we are going to add our starting catcher from the Rockies in Drew Romo, and perhaps for the final few spots on the roster, we'll get a little more selective as far as the positions that we are looking for. Although here, even with these first 11 players, we've got 2 catchers, 5 infielders, and 4 outfielders, so we're actually reasonably well diversified already. And it's not quite the same level of the embarrassment of riches as far as the pitching, but it still is very strong. A starting rotation of Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, and Noah Schultz to start. We're also going to bring Mason Miller onto the team as a reliever. Those are some pretty obvious selections for us. You can see there's a lot of very high-end starting pitchers for us to consider. The relievers, not as many, but we can certainly be using relievers or using starters in a reliever role. We do have a Ryan Kerkering and Luke Little, both of our roster, who are available, and being selfish and wanting to reward some guys on the Rockies, we're going to put both Kerkering and Luke Little on the team as well. And we've made our final decisions on our loaded 33-man roster for the U.S. in the upcoming World Baseball Classic. The pitching staff going to be very heavy with starters, supplemented by a few relievers. Hunter Brown, Mike Burrows, Garrett Crochet. Put the veteran Jacob deGrom on the team. Jared Jones joins his teammate Mr. Skeens on the team. Shane McClanahan, Max Meyer, Drew Rasmussen, Noah Schultz, Skeens, Skubal, and then among the relievers, Luke Little, lefty, Sam Hentges, lefty, righty veteran Jeff Hoffman, the righty Ryan Kerkering, and the righty Mason Miller. Our position players we will turn to next. And a lot of the top players in baseball clearly on the team. Cal Raleigh joins Romo and Rushing as our catchers. Judge joined by last year's AL MVP Nick Kurtz. Tyler Fitzgerald, Jackson Holliday as second baseman, Cooper Pratt at third, Gunnar Henderson, Carson Williams, and Bobby Witt all make the team as shortstops. The outfield loaded as well with Walker Jenkins, Wyatt Lankford, James Wood, Drew Burris, PCA, and Michael Harris II. No natural right fielders on the squad, but I think we'll be able to figure that out given the quality and versatility of the players who are on this U.S. team. And we did end up getting the outfield prospect Jose Ochoa signed, so certainly not as high-end a prospect in our mind as Mr. Morales, but we did spend all of the money we had available, and we got one of the 2 guys we liked the most by bringing on the potential, we hope, future ace of our rotation in Mr. Morales. And Mr. Jimenez demand has come down dramatically. Don't love the bat at this point, but great in the clubhouse. Really good glove that hopefully in spring training we can get a little more versatile than only being able to play second base for us, even though he is older, does have high adaptability, work ethic, and baseball IQ, really good speed, and at this point he's only looking for $2 million, which particularly in the form of a minor league contract that becomes a major league guarantee if he makes the team, is very reasonable for us to put on the table right now. And we made it to the start of spring training. Before we finish up this episode, we'll find out what happened in the development lab with the long programs tomorrow. Looks like we may only have a couple of successful programs. Justin Gibson with his pitch movement and Charlie Condon with his two-strike approach both look on track. Marginal whether Isaiah Shader is going to improve his control. And we've got a lot of people who are borderline between frustrated and struggling right now. So doesn't look like it's going to be the most fruitful development lab period ever for this team, but it is what it is at this point. And is kind of seemed like the best case scenario we could have. Only 3 of the 7 programs that concluded today were successful. No improvement in plate discipline from the top prospect in our organization in Kevin Roberts Jr. Trent Clausen, no improvement with gap power. Ted Miller, no improvement with plate discipline. And Ryan Stone, no improvement with gap power. So a very rough trip to the development lab for 4 of those top young outfield prospects in our organization. Justin Gibson, a very interesting relief prospect, improved his movement a little bit. Isaiah Shader improved his control just a little bit. And Charlie Condon was successful with his two-strike approach, which hopefully will cut down on his strikeouts going forward and maybe help him hit a little bit better than the 220, 198, and 228 batting averages he's put up for us over parts of his first 3 seasons in the majors with the Rockies. And we're going to have a very strong defensive tilt in the shorter programs here. Kevin Roberts Jr., Trent Clausen, and Ryan Stone working on their outfield defense, some of the better prospects in our organization. Isaiah Shader and Justin Gibson, the pitchers, going to join Marcelo Meyer and Adile Amador working on their infield defense. So we're going to kind of hopefully get some improvements in these hard programs, particularly with Amador and Meyer, who could be forced to play more demanding defensive infield positions with the fact that we're going to be without Mr. Tovar for all of this upcoming season. So we'll sim forward one more day to find out what Painter does with his improved control program. Clearly looking like that will not be a successful result for us. And as expected, no improvement from Andrew Painter. Can't say that I'm shocked with the way he looked yesterday. So with that, we are going to finish up this episode. Next time around, we're going to sim all the way through spring training, find out what happens with this second round of development lab programs. And as we talked about earlier this episode, we're also going to be general manager for the U.S. of A. in the World Baseball Classic, with it being the 4th of July tomorrow as I'm recording this. Seems like a timely time to be looking at the stars and stripes and seeing if perhaps tomorrow we'll be able to guide the U.S. to victory in the 2030 WBC. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.